back like we never left. It's Double Move Sports, back with our wide receiver week 2 starts and sits, going through every game on week 2's slate from Thursday Night Football to Monday Night Football. As always, I'm Stef Albiero. I'm here with the fantasy phenom, Alex Lott. We're going to jump right into this thing, but before we do, like and sub on YouTube. Crucial, keeps the show moving forward. Greatly appreciate it. Join the Discord channel. If we get into some of these start sits, and maybe you have 2 guys that we call a start, and you want to hit us up and hit up our community of like-minded, brilliant fantasy minds, hit that free Discord channel in the description down below. But Alex, I'm going to start us off with Giants against the Washington football team. It's a 41-point over-under. Very, very low-scoring outing projected by Vegas here, with the Washington football team as 3.5-point favorites. You're starting Terry McLaurin. You're sitting Donnie Brown. Don't get cute. You're sitting Adam Humphries. Don't get cute. With Taylor Heinicke at quarterback, Terry's really the only guy you can trust. And we did see some flashes with Heinicke in the lineup, passing the ball to Terry McLaurin. So I still have hope for him. I think he's going to be in a funnel situation with Antonio Gibson. And then on the Giants side of the ball, I think you can plug in Kenny Golladay this week. You can stream Sterling Shepard off of waiver wires in desperation situations. I saw that he was on a lot of waiver wires. So if you had injury issues already hitting your team, you can stream Sterling Shepard, who led the team in targets, looked pretty good. I think we forgot about him as a fantasy community for this year. And then don't get cute and start Darius Slayton. He's nothing more than a DraftKings name.
Next on the docket is the Rams at the Colts. And before I get into this game, I just want to remind everyone, at the end of the episode, once we've broken down every wide receiver from every matchup, we are going to be giving our starts of the week, guys and matchups we just love for week 2. So be sure to stick around for that. But let's talk Rams and Colts. On the Rams side of the ball, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, must start guys every single week. Kupp looked fantastic in week 1 with Matt Stafford. Van Jefferson had the big play. He's no more than a desperation flyer to me in a deep multi-flex league. He's kind of going to be boomer bust with a long touchdown. I'm definitely not counting on that every single week. And on the Colts side of the ball, it is a little bit more interesting. Paris Campbell right now is not someone you're putting into your lineup. Michael Pittman also concerned me in week 1 in a tough matchup against the Rams. I'm sitting him if I can. If anyone, I think Zach Pascal is a deep stream for the Colts, but I'm going to go ahead and label him as a sit as well. I'm going to sit all 3 Colts wide receivers in this matchup. I thought Wentz looked okay in week 1, relied a lot on the running backs through the passing game. Wouldn't be surprised to see Pittman, Campbell, or Pascal to get into the end zone this week. I just don't know where the ball is going to go. It was a very evenly distributed passing game for Indy in week 1. So for that reason, in a tough matchup, fading all the Colts wide receivers in week 2.
Next, we got Bengals up against the Bears, 45-point over-under. Chicago are 3-point favorites. You're starting all 3 Bengals. I know Tyler Boyd disappointed in week 1. It was also the lowest passing game volume that the Bengals have had since Joe Burrow's been in Cincinnati. So I'm not expecting that to remain the same. I don't expect Joe Mixon to have the hyper-efficient volume that he did, so I'm willing to plug Boyd back in. You have Higgins and Chase coming off good weeks where they scored touchdowns, so you're already plugging those guys back in. Great to see Jamar Chase turning out to be what we've said he's going to be all year. Shout out to the person that got mad at me for drafting Chase over Claypool. That was why. And then on the Bears side of the ball, we have Allen Robinson. He's an auto start. Don't need to give any takes about him. But Darnell Mooney becomes really interesting, especially with Justin Fields presenting that next level of upside in the unknown. Mooney had 7 targets in week 1, has a great matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm willing to plug him in this week if I have to.
Yeah, and if you're watching this after your waivers have cleared, go and check and see if someone dropped Darnell Mooney. He was already this fringe sleeper name, and after a disappointing outing from a statistical standpoint in week 1, someone could have dropped him even though he had 7 targets in that game. So I'd be willing to pick him up and stash him on the bench. But let's go ahead and move on to the Texans at the Cleveland Browns. A 48-point over-under in this one, but the Browns are favored by 12.5 points. We'll start out with Houston. It's just Brandon Cooks, and it's only Brandon Cooks. And I think you can actually start him in this game. I know he had a great game against Jacksonville. There's a lot of question marks about the Texans' offense as a whole. I'm definitely not counting on huge things from Cooks, but in a funneled volume situation, they're still going to be passing the ball. They should be trailing in this game against Cleveland. I think Cooks can do enough to give you a solid week in your lineup. And on the Browns side of the ball, it's really just Jarvis Landry for me. He's a start. He looked solid in week 1, was fairly involved, was getting utilized all over the football field. So he's a start for me in a great matchup against the Houston Texans. But Donovan Peoples-Jones, Anthony Schwartz, these guys are sits for me. They're nothing but deep names. Maybe in some dynasty leagues, they're going to be interesting. And in the deepest of leagues, you stash them on your bench. But they're sits. If Odell Beckham Jr. plays in this game, he's a sit. I'm not wanting to roll him out there the first week he's back. But at the time of this recording early in the week, we still don't know whether he's going to be out there in week 2.
Next, we got the Bills in Miami, 47.5 point over-under. Bills are only 3-point favorites in this game. It could be an interesting one. Really interesting on the Miami side of the ball. Will Fuller coming back. I'm not willing to plug him in yet. But if we see good things from Tua and we see the rapport there with Will Fuller, I am going to be looking at Will Fuller later on. And if you keep rocking with us, we'll tell you when you can plug Will Fuller into your lineups. Now, with Will Fuller back, it also makes the other options in the Miami passing game, Devontae Parker, Jalen Waddle, much more difficult to project. I am willing to plug Waddle back out there in what should be a high-scoring affair against a Buffalo offense that we know can put up points. I am hedging a little bit on Devontae Parker and Waddle to an extent. Waddle did have the touchdown. Both guys only had 4 receptions. Parker actually led the team with 7 total targets. I'm trying to sit both if I can, willing to plug Waddle in a desperation situation just because he has that ability to make the big plays. I thought he looked good, especially as a rookie in his first game. We should expect more from Devontae Parker at this point, but I'm still sitting him along with Fuller. And then on the Buffalo side of the ball, you're starting Stephon Diggs. Nothing I need to say about him. Cole Beasley, though, with a very interesting 13 targets. Strong number 2, Slotty Pippen coming out for Cole Beasley. 8 receptions for 60 yards. He's a streamer, right? He's a deep flex name if you need him. I don't expect a ton to be needed for him. Certainly not 13 targets. I'm not expecting Josh Allen to pass the ball over 50 times like he did against Pittsburgh. And then Emmanuel Sanders and Gabe Davis. These are both upside shots. They're guys to keep an eye on. Maybe you stash Emmanuel Sanders at the end of your bench. But right now, I'm fading both of these guys for week 2. Wait. Alex, I have to stop the show because I'm dumb hyped over this new sponsorship deal we got. Shout out to our guys over at Manscaped. And look, I was skeptical, but Alex, you know I've been a very hairy guy for a long time. I was the kid at 13 years old in middle school.
Oh, yeah.
With chest hair showing out of the polo shirt. Like, I was that dude.
I was jealous at the time.
Well, nothing to be jealous over anymore because ever since I got this lawnmower 4.0 from them, it's been clean down there, to say the least.
Manscaped has the Lawnmower 4.0, not the 1, not the 2, not the 3, but the 4.0. Talk about sleepers on our show, and this has to be one of the best sleeper products out there. I was skeptical as well, and it's been an absolute game changer. Check out Manscaped. This thing is legit, and you will definitely not be disappointed by this full body trimmer. It's incredible.
So Manscaped was nice enough to give us a 20% off discount code for the Double Move Sports viewers. You can get 20% off and free shipping with code DMS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code DMS. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Now back to the show.
Steph, moving on to the Patriots at the Jets. More AFC East action. It's a low over-under in this one, which makes it tough for a fantasy football perspective. The over-under is 43. The Patriots are 5-point favorites on the road. And we'll start out with the New England Patriots and Mac Jones, the battle of the rookie quarterbacks here. Jacoby Myers, for me, is actually a start in this game. I know he was fairly disappointing in week 1, 6 receptions for 44 yards. But I love that he saw 9 targets in this offense. He clearly is the Patriots wide receiver 1. And against a much weaker Jets secondary than the one he faced last week in Miami, Jacoby Myers is someone you can roll out there with a decent amount of confidence in week 2. And Nelson Aguilar, for me, is going to be a sit. I know he was okay in week 1, 5 for 72 and a touchdown on 7 targets. But I do believe Aguilar is the 2 in this offense. If you're in a deeper league and you need an upside streamer, maybe you toss Aguilar out there. But I'm definitely going to prefer Myers to him in week 2. So Aguilar is going to be a sit for me. I think he's going to have a similar role that he had last year. Some weeks he's going to boom for touchdowns. Some weeks he's going to disappoint. But he's just one of these flex-type names that you can play in the right matchups. And let's go ahead and move on to the Jets side of the ball. We'll start out with Corey Davis, the clear de facto number 1 for the Jets. Had the 2 touchdowns in week 1. He's going to be a start. It looks like Zach Wilson is honing in on this guy as he gets up to speed in the NFL. So he is an auto start. If you played him in week 1, you're very happy with him. And if you benched him, you wish you played him. So he's going to be in your lineup for week 2, even against a tough Patriots secondary. And Jamison Crowder, if he's active, he's expected to be active. He is a sit for me in his first game of the season. And Elijah Moore is a sit as well. It looks like it might take us some time to have the Elijah Moore breakout this season. A very interesting dynasty name, but not super interested in playing him right now in redraft formats.
Next up, we have the 49ers at the Philadelphia Eagles. 50-point over-under, a lot higher than I expected in this game. San Francisco, only 3.5-point favorites. On the 49ers side of the ball, the only guy we can trust right now is Deebo Samuel, who had an incredible performance. Brandon Ayuk putting up a goose egg, still listed as questionable on the injury report. Still waiting and seeing on Brandon Ayuk, trying to avoid him like the plague in my lineups in week 2. If there's some extra stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. There's rumors that Shanahan was disciplining Brandon Ayuk for lacking professionalism, for whatever that means. I don't really know, but I'm going to wait to see on Ayuk. I still expect big things from him this year, but just a disappointing week 1 where I want to wait and see before I plug him into a lineup. And on the Philly side, I think you can continue to put Devontae Smith out there. Devontae Smith showing in his first game as a rookie a very solid performance, commanded 8 targets, led the team, so he's already shown that he is going to be the wide receiver 1 here. Had 6 receptions for 71 yards, added a touchdown as well. You're plugging in Smitty as a perfect flex name. Shout out to you if you did end up drafting him as an upside shot in your league. Hopefully he fell and you got him at value. The other interesting option is Jalen Reagor. Now, I'm not starting him this week against the 49ers, but very interesting what he was able to do in his first week with Jalen Hurts looking pretty good. I'm just not expecting 6 for 6 for 49 and a touchdown like he just did against the Atlanta Falcons this week against the San Francisco 49ers.
Next on the docket, we got the Raiders at the Steelers, a 47.5-point over-under. The Steelers are 6-point favorites in this game. We'll start with the Raiders side of the ball. Henry Ruggs, Bryan Edwards, Hunter Renfrow, they're all sits for me against Pittsburgh. We saw what happened on Monday night with Derek Carr just locking in on Darren Waller and giving him targets play after play after play. So for that reason, right now, I can't trust Ruggs, Edwards, and Renfrow. I don't know what the target share is going to look like, and it's a tough matchup against Pittsburgh. And on the Steelers side of the ball, it's the total opposite end of the spectrum. We have Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster. They're all starts for me in week 2. If I have any of these 3 guys, I'm feeling fairly comfortable putting them into my lineup. But if you watch the running back video, Najee Harris was my start of the week. Now I've got 3 starts at the wide receiver spot. So chances are, I don't know how all 3 receivers and Najee Harris put up good performances. I don't know if there's going to be enough volume for them in this game. So with Juju, with Deontay, with Claypool, I think one of them might get the short end of the stick in this game, but I have no clue who it's going to be, and I would bet on one of them to actually have a very, very good game like we saw from Deontay Johnson with the solid performance in week 1. So these 3 guys on a week-to-week basis, it's similar to Tampa, where we expect big things from them, but one guy might get left out. It was Mike Evans in week 1 for the Bucs. That could be the case in week 2 with the Steelers, but I'm willing to roll the dice because all 3 of these guys are talented, and I think 2 of them at least are going to get it done.
I can't remember the last time I saw Deontay Johnson with a single-digit target total when he played a whole game. He is commanding targets from
He's the lock of the 3. I think between Claypool and Juju, it could be back and forth, a little bit more boom-bust for those guys. But you're right. I think Deontay is the clear one of this group.
Now, continuing down the slate, we got the Saints against the Panthers. It's a 44.5-point over-under. The Saints are 3-point favorites here. I am willing to start Marquez Callaway this week. I know it was a rough outing, but he was against Jair Alexander, one of the best cornerbacks, if not the best in the league. Had 2 targets, caught one of them for 14 yards. We saw Jameis Winston just start peppering the tight ends, Adam Troutman and Juwan Johnson, especially in the red zone. I'm expecting things to swing the other way for Marquez Callaway. I think we could see him with the touchdown in this game. And he's a guy where he is getting some air yards. We know Jameis can sling it deep. Only needs something like 4 receptions for him to have a solid yardage total. Then you hope for the touchdown. So for where you got Callaway in drafts, I think this is why you drafted him, to be a name that you can start in a soft matchup at your flex. And then I think you can start DJ Moore, who looks to be taking over the wide receiver 1 role again. Thank God Matt Rule finally opened his eyes and saw that DJ Moore should be the clear alpha in Carolina now with Sam Darnold there. And I think you can still go back to the well with Robbie Anderson. I know he burned you with only 1 reception for 57 yards last week. only saw 3 targets. Did save his day with a touchdown, though. We're going to have to keep an eye on Robbie Anderson, but for this week, I am willing to go back in a matchup where they're going to need to throw the ball against a Saints stacked front. Now, last one in Carolina is Terrace Marshall, a guy that I am looking at on the waiver wire because he saw 6 targets, out-targeted Robbie Anderson, but not willing to start him until I see a little bit more.
Next up, we have the Broncos at the Jaguars, and this is a 45.5 point over-under. Denver is the 6-point road favorite. We just saw the Jaguars get absolutely dominated by the Houston Texans. So on the Denver side of the ball, we talked about Teddy and our quarterback start sit, a great streaming option this week. And Courtland Sutton was disappointing in week 1. I have him on my roster in our home league, and I'm rolling him back out there in week 2. It was disappointing. He burned me. I lost my matchup. But he's a start for me in a great matchup. Now, Jerry Jeudy is out. He's going to miss time, unfortunately. So I'm willing to start Sutton. It is concerning that he was out-targeted by Jeudy when he was healthy in that game, by Noah Fant, by KJ Hamler and Tim Patrick as well. But he was out there for a ton of snaps, and I'm willing to take the chance on him in week 2. He's the Denver wide receiver I would prefer in this matchup. I think KJ Hamler and Tim Patrick are deep flyers. You know, if you're in a 14-team, 16-team league and you have a couple flex spots, I think they're upside shots. I think they should be rostered, maybe stashed on a bench in most leagues with Jerry Jeudy out. But I want to sit both in this game unless I'm absolutely desperate. And then on the Jaguars side of the ball, it's tough because we have 3 guys, DJ Chark, Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault. And we have a really tough matchup against the Denver Broncos. The Denver secondary is absolutely fantastic. But I'm actually willing to start all 3 Jacksonville wide receivers. DJ Chark is a start for me. 3 receptions last week, but he had 12 targets in that game. Marvin Jones had 5 for 77 and a touchdown on 9 targets. Laviska Shenault had 9 targets of his own. So I think all 3 of these guys are going to see volume. I think Trevor Lawrence this season could be the Joe Burrow of last year, where they're just getting beat in a lot of these games and they have to throw the ball a ton. So even if it is a tough matchup against Denver, I do think they're going to be throwing for the majority of this game, and that can provide enough volume for all 3 receivers because they don't have a tight end of consequence. They didn't use the running backs a lot in week 1, so I think Chark, Marvin, and Laviska are all worth flexing in your starting lineup for week 2.
Love it there. And Chark, second on the week in air yards, only behind Tyreek Hill. He's going to be an interesting upside name season long. But shifting over to Vikings at Cardinals, 51-point over-under. The Vikings in back-to-back shootouts to start off the 2021 season, and I'm here for it. You're starting Justin Jefferson. You're starting Adam Thielen. Of course, on the Cardinals side of the ball, you are starting DeAndre Hopkins. Where it gets interesting, though, is with Rondale Moore and Christian Kirk. Do not start A.J. Green. Still looking on the downswing. Only 2 receptions on 6 targets. Just looking like a shell of his former self. Love what A.J. Green's done as a player, but I cannot trust him. Don't want to touch him in fantasy because he has just shown that it's not going to get it done. He might have weeks, but you're never going to know when they're going to come. And I feel like that's the same for Christian Kirk, who was super efficient, caught all 5 of his targets for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns in another shootout game script against Minnesota. I think Kirk could repeat that performance. We've seen him do it in stretches before, so I am willing to flex or spot start Christian Kirk if I'm in a tough situation. Rondale Moore, a guy that also could be an interesting flex, high floor name. Not loving if I have to put him in my lineup or not, but caught 4 of his 5 targets for 68 yards. Did not get a touchdown, but it looked pretty good. Was close to a touchdown that I believe either they called back or he was down at the 1. So very excited for Rondale Moore. Definitely need to be rostered. Not trying to start him if I can help it. Need to see a little bit more of what that target share is going to look like.
So next is another shootout potential game with the Falcons at the Bucks, 52-point over-under, even though Tampa is heavily favorited. On the Tampa side of the ball, not going to break down much here. You got Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, AB. We saw what they were able to do week 1. I know Mike Evans disappointed you, but in a great matchup, all 3 are starts in week 2, no questions asked. And then on the Falcons side of the ball, we have Calvin Ridley, who is a lock-it-in starter, and Russell Gage is a sit. Shocking week 1 performance with only 2 targets, 0 receptions for Atlanta. They looked rough in this matchup, so you're not playing Russell Gage until further notice. I wouldn't drop him just yet, but if he comes out in week 2 and has another bad performance, I'm absolutely fine to cut him to the waiver wire. So pretty straightforward in this game. You're locking in all 3 bucks, and for the Falcons, it's Calvin Ridley, and that's it.
Next up is one of the most fun matchups that we're excited to watch in week 2. It's the Cowboys against the Chargers. The Chargers are 3-point favorites. Vegas projects this as a 55-point over-under, so should be a lot of points scored, should be a lot of passing. And on both teams, you got two guys that are now the funneled options, with Michael Gallup going to be missing this game with an injury. So you have Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. You're starting them both. You drafted them to be every week starters. You're doing that. Hopefully you have Dak Prescott for the stack if you listen to us during the offseason. And then on the Chargers side of the ball, it was really interesting to see almost a similarly funneled situation to Dallas, where they have all these strong passing game options. They have strong tight ends, but you're seeing the majority of the targets being peppered with their two primary wide receivers. Keenan Allen, always a start. Can't remember the last time I saw him with single-digit target numbers. And then Mike Williams. Mike Williams emerged, and it looks like could be that guy that we expected him to be. Could be a guy that in the late rounds of your drafts was a huge value. Came out in week 1, 12 targets, caught 8 of those for 82 yards in a touchdown. And what was a tougher matchup in the Washington football team. So I'm excited for Mike Williams, willing to trot him out there again in week 2.
Next on the docket, we got the Titans at Seattle. This one should be a fun game. 54-point over-under. And at the receiver spot, these are two teams we have comped time and time again throughout the offseason, especially after Julio got picked up by Tennessee. Two teams that have lower volume, higher efficiency passing attacks, and they funnel all of the volume that they do have through two stud wide receivers. So not going to spend a lot of time on this one for Seattle. It's a lot easier. DK and Lockett, lock it in. They're both starting for you this week. And for the Titans, A.J. Brown's a start. He got saved by the touchdown last week. And Julio Jones, I know he disappointed. I'm still willing to start him in week 2. I'm not going to buy too much into the dip in his performance. Still got 6 targets in that game. I'd love to see that come up to 7 or 8 in week 2. And Julio could give you the performance that you drafted him to give your football team. So all 4 wide receivers in this game are starts, and I'm not getting into any deeper options in this one because you're not considering anybody else between the Titans and the Seahawks.
Now, the highest over-under on the week at 55.5 points, it's the Chiefs at the Ravens. Kansas City, you're just 3-point favorites on the road. You're starting Tyreek Hill every single week. Don't get cute and start McCole Hardman. I threw this out there in our Discord channel. I will put it on wax on our YouTube channel. If you start McCole Hardman and he puts over 20 fantasy points, I will Venmo you $3. Just hit me up in the Discord because you're never going to know when to start Mecole Hardman. And then next on the Baltimore side of the ball, man, really wish Rashad Bateman was healthy and active, but it's going to be either Hollywood Brown or Sammy Watkins. I'm sitting Sammy Watkins. Still looks like he's getting onboarded. Doesn't exactly have a ton of chemistry with Lamar Jackson. Had a 50% catch rate, had 96 yards. Wasn't really exciting for fantasy in week 1 and what should have been a great matchup for him. But Hollywood Brown, he's still that high upside boom bust name that you can throw out there if you want to just shoot for the fences. Caught all 6 of his targets from Lamar Jackson for 69 yards. Also had a touchdown. Hollywood Brown is shown to be efficient as a touchdown scorer because he gets those deep downfield receptions. I'm expecting in a shootout game script for him to be a guy that you can plug in. I've gone in depth on the film on Hollywood Brown, specifically against the Chiefs. You can find that on our YouTube channel. But just trust me when I say Hollywood Brown should have a pretty good performance in week 2.
Yeah, I really like the Hollywood pick, and I actually disagree a little bit on Watkins. I agree you're sitting him, but I thought week 1 led the team in targets. No, he wasn't the most efficient with his catch rate, but 4 for 96 in week 1. You love to see he has a little bit of a revenge game here against the Chiefs. So, no, I'm not starting him, but I am willing to stash him on my bench, and if he comes out and puts another good performance, I don't know. Sammy Watkins in a deeper league, in the deepest of leagues, might start to get interesting if you have a multiple flex spots or something like that. But I agree with you. Definitely fading him if I can. And Hollywood is the Ravens receiver to start in week 2. But Steph, I'm going to be quick on this last matchup. The Lions at the Packers. Green Bay's a 10.5 point favorite in this one. 48-point over under. Actually 48.5 point over under. Excuse me. But I'm going to be quick on it because it's as straightforward as it gets. You're starting Devontae Adams, and you're sitting everybody else on both sides of the ball. Don't give me MVS. Don't give me Lazard, Cephas, Tyrell Williams, Khalif Raymond. I mean, I could have made a name up and you probably wouldn't have even noticed. You're sitting all those guys in this game. Yes, one of them's going to have some like 60-yard touchdown. It's just what happens. But there's no way you can count on it because the majority of them are going to go for like 2 catches, 35 yards in this game. So it's start Devontae Adams, sit everybody else. And with that, Steph, we'll get into our starts of the week. And I'll go ahead and go first. You hit on this guy. It's Mike Williams for the LA Chargers. I love what I saw from him in week 1. 8 for 82 on 12 targets, and scored the touchdown against a tough Washington football team. Now he gets the Dallas Cowboys in what should be a shootout. It can't all go to Keenan Allen. It can't all go to Austin Eckler. Mike Williams is someone we liked a little bit as a sleeper in the offseason. We said he's had a 1,000-yard season in his career. He's had a 10-touchdown season. What happens if he pulls both of those together? It can have a 1,000-yard, 10-touchdown season in 2021. And he's off to a great start. And I think in week 2 against Dallas, he continues that pace.
Love that take there. And my start of the week is Jamar Chase in what some may think is a tough matchup in the Chicago Bears. We already saw in his first week, granted T. Higgins was out of the game with an injury, had to go get an IV drip at one point and missed a few snaps. But Jamar Chase, 7 targets, caught 5 of them for 101 yards and a touchdown. Joe Burrow taking some deep shots downfield. We did not see from him, I don't think. I have to go back and watch all the tape. But Joe Burrow hit Jamar Chase on a deep reception. I'm sure everybody saw it. I'm expecting more of the same against Chicago. I'm expecting higher pass volume for Joe Burrow, and that's why Jamar Chase, you might be a little bit nervous. Is he legit or not after this first week? I feel good about it, but maybe you didn't plug him in yet. I'm telling you, you can go ahead and plug him into your flex, in your 12-team league, in your 14-team league, and feel fantastic with it. But if you guys like the show, a like and a sub on YouTube, greatly appreciated. Again, hit that Discord link, chat with us. We'll be live streaming in the Discord and on YouTube all season long. Hit us up with those start sit questions, and we'll see y'all next time. Peace.